Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Telford College's second live webinar. So if you're joining us here this afternoon, you may very well have had the opportunity to meet us on our first webinar, which was all about apprenticeships and the way to get your foot on the right path for getting secured in an apprenticeship. This is the next webinar, which is taking us another step forward, but we do want to acknowledge that we very well are aware that we have a lot more people that are engaged in this particular webinar, with it being around CV guidance. So that will include our current students at college as well, our work experience placement students, anybody out there who potentially could be looking at changing careers and things like that too. So we're aware that some of you will have different levels, that you've got a CV at the moment. And what we aim to achieve by this is giving you the opportunity to either create a fantastic, brand new, solid CV from scratch, update one existing that you've got already that you feel may not be working to the best of the ability, and give you lots of hints and tips going forward. So let's meet the team you're going to be introduced to today. So here's me again. I'm Susan McEwen, and I work in the Ambition Centre on the apprenticeship team, along with two of my great colleagues here, Chris Field and Amanda Carpenter. So all three of us will be talking to you today, and hopefully, like I said, giving you lots of information to get you that real solid CV that you need. A CV is an absolutely imperative item to have for everybody. It's that life skill that you need to get you in that working environment. So what we're going to do is show you how to write one, why it's important, and give you step-by-step guidance. We've got a live Q&A and very interactive slides on today's webinar, and that's going to be coming up throughout the actual slides, where any questions you want to pose to us or anything that comes up that you think, oh, do you know, I want to ask that question, Amanda's going to be on hand to answer those as we go. So if you do find something, use the Q&A please and pop it in there and get interactive with us. Let's find out what queries are on your minds. And we're going to have some great examples of the do's and the don'ts, and we feel this is a really clear message for you to be able to know what you do need to do and what you shouldn't do. Very briefly, what this will lead on to is what to do next. So we're going to reintroduce Talk to Us Tuesdays, or introduce those to people that have never heard from it before. And then the next webinar that we're going to be holding following this is the next step, and that's going to be interview techniques and how to guide you through that process. Because once you've got this under your belt, this fantastic CV, you're definitely going to be then on the way to getting those interviews secured. That's going to be Wednesday the 20th of May. So just a little tip there too, on our college website at telfordcollege.ac.uk, you can go back there and revisit the first webinar. And you'll also be able to see lots more hints and tips around apprenticeships and around full-time courses at the college. We're going to be having our virtual live event on there as well. So go to Telford College and have a little search through all the information that's on there, particularly at this time. There's a lot of info on there for your well-being, for support and help while you're studying at home. So if you need something to turn to as that first step for information, first of all, please do contact us and go onto the college website, because you'll find lots of updated information for you to utilise from. So there you go. So that's what's going to be happening today. And what I'm going to do now for you to take you into the solid steps that we've got is introduce to you my good colleague, Chris, and he'll bring you on to the next stage. So over to you, Chris.
Thank you, Susie. That's brilliant. So warm welcome to everybody today, and thank you for joining us. So what we're going to look at and reiterate is what a CV is, and obviously what we want to make sure it's used effectively for. So again, as Susie mentioned, whatever your situation is, whether you're a school leaver, or you're in college at the moment, or even sort of changing career, hopefully some helpful tips of why that CV is so important. So a CV, curriculum vitae, resume, all essential document for anyone wanting to apply for a job. And again, whether that's an apprenticeship, whether that's a brand new job, or whether that's a sort of internal promotion within a company that you're currently working with. They're a bit of an overview for skills, education, your work history and experience, so really getting that out to obviously whoever's looking at the CV. And a well-written CV could be that difference between getting an interview and getting yourself in front of that employer to sell yourself even more, to not being considered for that role. again, in the current job market and how it is, whether that's an apprenticeship or a job, it's incredibly competitive. So just making sure that your CV entices an employer to interview you is a good first step. So hopefully that CV just contains a little bit of a snapshot of what you're like as a person and your background, as well as the skills and education, making sure that you get your personality across as well. And hopefully what this webinar will show you today is how to format that, what detail to put in, and make sure it's a really, really solid CV. Okay, so looking through the contents of a CV, and what we like to call a Super 6 is contact information, your personal statements, work history, education and qualifications, hobbies and achievements, and those references and anything additional that will make your CV stand out. So, like Susie said, as we work through the slides, please feel free to make any comments and ask any questions as you go along, and we'll certainly look to cover off as many things as we can with those tips and hints. We've also got a couple of templates that we can pop out to people and send people. So again, if you've got any queries or questions, feel free to have a chat with us, and we'll also email out any information. So I'm just going to pass you back to Susie to start the first couple of sections of the CV.
Brilliant. Thanks ever so much then, Chris. So yes, the Super 6, this is what we have here at Telford College, and this is a foolproof way of remembering the specific details that need to be covered on your CV. So the first one on there would be contact information. So the first part, the first section needs to have full name. So, not just a first name or just a surname or Mr. Smith or whatever it might be. Full name, first name, surname. Put a middle name on there if it's relevant to you and you want to. Address, again, first line of address and postcode, even town if it's relevant on there too, so pop your address on. Also a phone number, and the phone number, make sure that it's a relevant phone number and it works. And then an email address as well, and really important that is to have an email address. Now, one of the things that are key here to let you know is, as a college, Telford College very much follow safeguarding and GDPR regulations. So GDPR, for people who don't know, is your General Data Protection Regulations. We will not use your contact information or disperse this to anybody without your prior consent and permissions, or without good reasonings to do so. And the purpose of that will be to get you into an interview and into a role. So if we didn't do that, we didn't pass on your phone number, email address, name, they wouldn't be able to know who you were. So it's obviously relevant for what we're using it for, but we guarantee that we'd have your permissions beforehand in doing so. And that's what one of the steps is we do. So we'd follow the criteria there. What we're going to do is bring up two options here. So what you can see from this is a good option, that's the one with the tick, and then a bad example. So I want you to spot the mistakes on there, and if you've got that eagle eye and you're seeing them, pop them in the Q&A for us. So let's see if you've noticed. As you can see on there, relevant full name first of all, Laura Rogers, and then what we've got there is the address, 123 The Hill, Telford, and postcode. Really nicely formatted that is, so you can see it's spread out for people to be able to clearly see. The mobile number is then spaced out as well. A mobile number is a long number, it's got a lot of digits in it. If you think about if you were putting area code and home phone number, you'd always split the area code and the phone number part of it. Same with a mobile, split the first 5 and the last 6 digits. It's just good practice really to do that. With an email address, again, the email address needs to be relevant, usable, up to date. The same with the phone number, obviously. And this is the way people are going to be contacting you. So please do make sure that it is workable. Now, hopefully you've seen, I can see from there, some people have picked up on the mistake. So quite clearly, Lozarog, don't use a nickname. That's not what an employer wants to see on there. They need to know the name of the person they're potentially going to be hiring. With the address on there as well, you can see 24 House London. Now, if I was an employer, I'd look at that and I'd think, my business is in Telford. Why would I hire somebody from London? And first of all, that's going to be their reasoning for dismissing your CV. They wouldn't even get any further down. They'd look at that and think it's not relevant. That person's clearly made a mistake in applying for this role. I'm not going to be taking this any further forward. So please make sure that you do put a relevant address on there. It might be that you've lived in London before, it might be that you're potentially moving. Put the up-to-date one on there, or at least give a reasoning for as to why that is. But other than that, it's going to be dismissed at that stage. With the phone number, again, like I said, you can see the clear difference between highlighting it and having it correct on there and not having too many digits in there. And then what we have noticed is people put in the comments, princesslaura@gmail.com. It doesn't scream professionalism. I'm not saying it's not okay to have that kind of email address. Maybe you keep one for fun and you keep one for your professional purpose, and that would be what would be relevant to put on your CV. So you can see there from the mistakes. I'm just going to be popping over to the Q&A to see some of the questions that we have had coming in so far, and keep them coming because they are very relevant. And to address those, we've got our Q&A expert. Amanda, are you with us?
Hi, thanks, Susie. Yeah, we're getting some questions coming in, which is absolutely fabulous. I wanted to say, first of all, thank you for the amount of people who've registered today and actually joined us. It's overwhelming, so we're really, really pleased. Lots of people out there will hopefully come away from this with a great CV. I've had a couple of people actually, Sam and Rob, both ask about home and mobile numbers to if it's necessary to put both of them on there. What I would suggest is, if you use your home number and it's an active contact number for yourself, then absolutely use both. If you're like me, you've got a landline but actually not a phone plugged into it, what is the point in putting your number on there? It's just make sure you put on there the contact number where you are happy for somebody to contact you for. Have another one as well from Sam, who talks about living or having parents who live in different properties and sort of splitting his time between both. So the address that needs to be on your CV is really the most permanent address for you, the one where you're likely to be in that working week when you're off to work, so the employer can see whereabouts you are, your location, and that's sort of all up to date. If you reside in different properties, that's fine, but just one main address. So yeah, great, thank you very much. Back over to you, Susie.
Brilliant, thanks Amanda. So moving on to our Super 6 number 2. So the next part after the contact information that we're going to be highlighting is your personal statement. So a brief overview, this needs to be what you want and why you want it, so relevant to the role. Maybe a little bit of work experience on there, your strengths, your education and your skills. So this is just an idea of what a brief overview could look like. Let's bring up an example, and this will then show you how they fit or how they can fit into a specific personal statement. So again, good example, bad example. With the bad example, have a little look, pop your mistakes and your comments in the Q&A for us. Let's look at this good example then. So I'm going to read it out to you. I'm looking for an apprenticeship as a teaching assistant because I have aspirations to teach in the future. I have work experience in a primary school where I have proven to be a team player and hardworking. Just from the first section, that person's highlighted what they want and why, looking for an apprenticeship as a teaching assistant, and because of the aspirations to teach in the future, that's why. Work experience is relevant and highlighted at being in a primary school. An employer's going to love that. They're going to see that they've been there, they've tried it for size, and that's why they know that that's what they want to do. Then what we do is we go on to a few of the strengths, education and skills. So I recently completed my GCSEs and I'm predicted a grade 6 in art, which was my favourite subject as I'm very creative. I hope to incorporate these skills in a school environment. Again, it's key to the position they're going for. It's highlighted something that they're very good at. It's showing a strength, it's showing a bit of the education, and it's done it in a summary type of way. That is a really good example of what you want for your personal statement. Now I can see again lots of comments have come in, so I'm going to hand you over then to Amanda. Just in a sec, just looking at, you can see the clear mistakes on there with the capitalize, and we find a lot of people do this. They don't always put a capital I, but you need to make sure that your grammar and your spelling is right and that that's been picked up. And also, yes, and maybe putting watching TV on the Xbox isn't quite what we want to do. We highlight our strengths and our skills on there. And also, yeah, the and the just. So I can see that the mistakes have been noticed. Well done. Amanda, have we had any questions following this slide? Oh, Amanda, you just need to pop your mic on. We can't quite hear you.
Oops, So there we go. That's what happens when you go live. So yeah, no, some great questions still coming through. We have one from Ebony saying, can I put on that I was a prefect at school? I think that's quite an important one, actually, because you've been chosen to be a prefect for a reason. It shows you're respectful, trustworthy, and you've been chosen as a role model. So those are massively important skills that are critical to an employer. So if they, incorporate those into your personal statement, it is great as your strengths. We have another one as well from Tal. Tal talks about not necessarily having had much opportunity of having experience in a factory environment or engineering environment, but actually is very, very hands-on, and is quite often most nights in the garage with his dad, fixing things, fixing his motorbikes. He's obviously a very talented or technically minded person. So again, skills, daily life skills, are as important as actually the skills you learn within the working environment. So those skills definitely need to be portrayed in your personal statement. The employer will pick those up straight away. You're going for an engineering role or a motor vehicle role, they will see straight away you've got somebody who's got that natural ability. So yeah, some great questions coming through. Please, I encourage you to keep them coming. I'll try my best to pick up as many as I can. Over to you, Chris.
Thanks, Amanda. That's great. Great to see so many questions coming through. So yeah, moving on to the work history. So part 3 of the Super 6 and what to include there. And again, a similar sort of feeling from personal contact information in that statement, really, of making sure that the relevant information's in there. And this is where it can start to be a little bit of a crossover with certain things, and you'll see what I mean in a bit. So what to include in your work history. It's the company name, the position that you held within that company, the dates that you worked there, and just a bit of a brief overview, or you can drop it down into bullet points for sort of your roles and responsibilities within that job. So we're going to have a quick look at, again, a good and a bad example, or a not so good example. So if you see anything that is on your CV at the moment, or similar to your CV, that is either good or is either not so good, pop it in the comments and we'll pick that up and run through anything for you. But ultimately, again, it's making sure that we've got all the relevant information concisely and to the point, so employers can easily pick it up and see where you've got transferable skills or relevant skills from previous work history. So if we look at the top example, the one that we've identified as being quite a good example, the Orange Tree Restaurant, November 2019 to January 2020, waitress. So again, brilliant. Even in 1-2 lines, we've got a lot of information there. And then looking at the brief overview, I worked here over the Christmas period at evenings and weekends. I worked as a team, often under pressure to serve a busy restaurant. So an employer can pick up that, and even in, again, 2 sentences, they can start to guess a few of the transferable skills that you have. Okay, so really, really important to go into a little bit of detail and make sure that we get that across to the employer as easy as possible for them to see. Carrying on, it says, I made sure I always smiled and gave good customer service, was punctual, and I was able to help in other departments like pot wash or chefs with preparing puddings. So again, some excellent detail in there. Dropping in little skills like customer service, being punctual, that's again going to be really, really good little things to sort of sow in that employer's head that you are a great candidate for the potential role that's available. Okay, so hopefully you can take some hints and tips from that. And if we compare that to the poor example, it's a little bit brief, the poor example. So waitress, Orange Tree. I worked here for a bit and served customers and helped in the kitchen. So again, the employer looking at that CV, they're guessing. They're really guessing what you did. They can probably know a little bit from a restaurant, but add that detail. That's key to what we would really, really say. Okay. And just down the bottom, just a few other tips, because people are in different situations, whether people have had 2 or 3 jobs and they're a little bit older in life, or looking at school leavers and people who've been within education in college. Make sure you add any work experience. So even if you've only been somewhere for maybe a week, if that's your only source of work experience, make sure you shout about it. Any voluntary work, again, make sure you shout about it and add those details that you can drop in lots of different skills that you've learned with those experiences, those transferable skills that are going to be great. Okay, even things like going back to, you know, paper rounds, pot washing, washing cars, anything that, again, examples your attitude, your commitment to things, and having that work ethic, really. So, Amanda, any interesting questions coming from looking at work history at all?
Yeah, hiya. Yeah, we got some questions where we've been asked, I've already done some work experience in the past, can you put that on your CV? And actually a similar question came from Natasha, who was saying she did some work experience in a nursery, but that isn't her chosen career. Is it worth adding? So the bottom line is any work experience is relevant, because everything you do, every job you do, every experience you have will have some transferable skills. They need to be obviously applicable to the role, or a skill that you can transfer into a role, but absolutely. So for example, the nursery, you were probably interacting with parents, interacting with the staff. All of that is customer service, working with others and building your confidence. So that was a great one. Thank you, Natasha, and somebody else, but unfortunately I can't, the name isn't listed. Another one as well is, and this is quite a common one, we receive when we talk to people looking at their CVs and looking to apply for roles, is, do I put a paper round as a work experience? Thank you as well to Jack for that question. Absolutely, because it just shows you were the person who, after school every night in the rain, went out delivering papers, wanting to earn a wage, had a good work ethic, didn't want to go out with your mates playing football or going round to your friends to watch a movie. Brilliant work ethic, great work commitment. So yeah, absolutely, get that on your CV. So great questions, keep them coming. Over to you, Chris.
Brilliant, fantastic. So if we move on to, again, similar sort of thing, really, the 4th section of the Super 6, we've got education. So again, similar sort of pattern, really, you'll notice emerging. It's that content of being, one, having that detail, and the second thing, it's relevant to what you're looking to start applying for and get over your CV over to employers for, sorry. So a list of the qualifications you have gained, make sure you include those details, where you studied, the dates that you were there, what qualifications that you've achieved, and also what grade. Again, important little details to make sure that we have. So if we look at the good and the not so good examples, if you see any mistakes, again, in just the formatting, pop them in the Q&A. And also anything that you have any queries on about your education, any qualifications that maybe aren't so much of those core subjects, pop in the Q&A and we'll answer those and try and sort of decipher which ones to put on and which ones may be more relevant in a slightly different section of the CV. So the good example, we've got, again, lots of detail in that top line. Lacon Child School, November 2015 to May 2020. Predicted GCSE grades, maths, English, art, geography, and we've got those grades behind all of them. So again, it ticks the boxes for where, the dates, and obviously the qualification and the grades. Really important one to pick up there, those equivalent qualifications. So you can see in the good example, we've got functional skills IT level 2. So again, there's all sorts of qualifications that people have studied, not just GCSEs. We've got things like functional skills, A levels, all sorts of things. So make sure that you put in all of those equivalents. There in the good example, we've got, again, Sharon Ann Dance School, April 2018, a level 4 ballet. So again, that could be sort of in that confused area of, is it a hobby or is it education? Now, what I'd say by looking at that qualification is it's a level 4. It looks like a formal qualification that somebody has studied, obviously, at a dance school. So I'd certainly say that falls in the education side of things, whereas maybe a little bit of a difference is if someone just attended ballet classes and hadn't particularly done, as formal the qualifications as maybe a dance school. So again, any confusion, feel free to pop it in the Q&A with similar things that are maybe on your CV. If we look at the poorer example, you can see the differences. A few of you have spotted them in the comment section already. We've got no dates. We've got GCSE spelt slightly wrong, so it's that attention to detail. And they haven't said what grades they had from 2 to up to 6. So those differences, and when you're thinking about an employer's perspective, we want to make it easy for that employer to really get a good snapshot of what your background is. And that second one just doesn't quite justify what many of you will have achieved in your education. Functional skills IT as well. Again, someone's popped that in the comment section already. There's no level there. There's no level for that functional skills. So again, that employer is sort of guessing at what that person has studied. Okay. Amanda, what else have we had in the comment section? Have we had any questions that you'd like to run through?
Yeah, hiya, Chris. Yeah, a couple of people have actually mentioned this. I've got Hannah, who's talking about predicted grades on your education. So it's really important you list your grades. An employer needs some guidance of where your current level is. But the most critical part is you update that as soon as you get the correct grades. Believe me, we've had CVs come through where the predicted grades are still showing 6-12 months later. It's so important you go back in and update your CV with all of your results and any other further education as you go through life. So, yeah, thank you very much. Over again to you, Chris.
Brilliant. So if we go on to step 5 of the Super 6, I think Susie's going to pop through the last couple of things on your CV that hopefully just really finish it off and make sure that those extra little details are added. So Susie, I'll pass over to you for these if I can. Sorry, I think Susie's mic'd herself out there, or we can't hear her at all, so just bear with us.
I was having a right chit chat with myself then as well. There you go. So yeah, just going to say thanks for all the questions that are coming in. In fact, we've had so many queries and questions. We have actually got 2 other members of our team that are busy answering them away. So if you are getting your answers, you'll see Laura and Becky are both still busy trying to answer them, as well as Amanda as well. So thanks, keep them coming. Fantastic. Super 6 then, on to number 5. We've got our hobbies and achievements. So what extra activities do you do for fun? That's kind of where we're looking at, and what makes you stand out and shows your character and your personality. And those are the types of things that are covered in the hobbies and achievements. And it's quite important what we do is we very much distinguish between your education and your other sections into what goes into the hobbies and achievements. And this is where some people can get a little bit confused as to what they actually put there. So let's have a little look at the examples that we've got for you. So we've got a good and a bad. Again, whatever you're spotting on the bad example, chuck them into the Q&A for us. Let's see if you've got those eagle eyes on it too. For the hobbies and achievements then, and a good example, then we've put, I am an RAF cadet. I learn life skills, training and procedures. I've made lots of friends there and have achieved awards in cybersecurity and D&V. So D&V, Duke of Edinburgh, if anybody out there wasn't sure what that meaning was. I play netball as a goal scorer in the Summer Netball League and train in the winter. Last year we came second in the league. So I think it's quite apparent from those that they're 2 real key hobbies and achievements from those hobbies that fit very well into this. But I think what would be quite apparent to say here is that sometimes people aren't maybe sure of what, we're not saying that everybody has to be a cadet, Army Cadet, Sea Cadet or anything like that, and that's the only thing you can use. These are purely just examples. We're all different. We've all got different things that we enjoy doing and all got different things that we would have achieved at as well. So if we look at the example that we're saying isn't quite up to scratch here, putting waitress orange tree, well, we know that that's already something that's gone into the work experience section because that's where it's relevant. Whether that's paid work, volunteer work or work experience, that's perhaps where something like that, it's in a business and it goes into that relevant section. It doesn't fit on with the hobbies and achievements. I came first in my primary school's long jump. Well, brilliant, that's great. However, is it relevant for what's happening now? And primary school was a long time ago. You've been through secondary school since and your things are going to have changed. I'm sure there's something that's more current and a better example to go in hobbies and achievements at that point there. I like dogs and have 3. Well, as much as that's wonderful and we all love dogs and, have all probably got some kind of pets from goldfish to cats. Does an employee need to know it? No, that's something that wouldn't really sit on this on a CV at all, really. However, it might be that you like dogs that much that you do some kind of volunteering or you go and visit Dogs Trust or you do donations for them. It could be something that you're thinking isn't a hobby and achievement, and actually it is. And we want to help give you the guidance and the advice to know what will and what won't work in these. So again, in the Q&A, if you're not sure if something you do is a hobby or an achievement, pop it in the question and answers and let us try and answer those today for you. Alternatively, pick up the phone, drop us an email and ask. And I like meeting friends is the last one on there. And I like this one because although it's, everybody likes meeting their friends and family, and I'm sure that we all wish we could be doing that a lot more at the moment. I like meeting friends doesn't fit in that terminology onto a CV. It's not what an employee needs to know. However, if you were to just change that a little bit and put socialising, I like socialising or I'm good at socialising, that type of thing does show some of those key transferable skills that we've talked about already. So an employee could look at that and say, okay, this is good. I've got a social person here. That's going to fit well in my team. They're going to be able to talk to their colleagues, make friends, and they're going to not be too shy if it comes to meeting customers, speaking on the phone, whatever it might be. It's something that can be relayed to it. So this is where we're saying for hobbies and achievements, they can be unique. They will be unique because they will be very, very typical to what you do and what you like. But if you're not sure, ask us in the question. So Amanda, has anybody popped any of those queries or questions in for us today?
Yeah, lots still coming through. So we've got a great one from Tammy who talks about NCS. There's a lot of students who finish school who are 16 and 17 who get the opportunity to do a youth programme. It's a fantastic opportunity, and it's definitely one that you should consider putting on your CV for achievements, because you will gain so many fantastic transferable skills. There'll be teamwork involved, working with others. You'll get the opportunity to lead a team, to lead a project where you have to come up with ideas to create a project and make money to support a local charity. It massively builds confidence. All of those, those skills are so beneficial for your CV. So definitely, if you've been along and got involved heavily with that, that really needs to go on there. Cameron mentioned about a website he did in school and got a distinction for. Is that relevant? It definitely is relevant if the role you're looking to move into, it involves IT. It just shows your IT skills, and it goes back to the personal statement where, what are you looking for and what are the skills you have that match what you're looking for. Well, but that's it completely, because you've done a project in school, you've built a website, and this is where you can expand and explain about the programs you used, what you did, what audience you got from it. So, and then for somebody within the IT sector, who's probably going to understand IT a lot more than me, is going to understand the programs that you were using and what you were exposed to, and that's what's going to sell you. And it's a bit like somebody else doing a project design, who's somebody who wants to go into sort of a hands-on engineering type role. If you've done something in product design and you've made something and you've used the tools, get them down here in your achievements, say what you made and say how you did it and what skills you learned from it. So yeah, again, some great things coming through.
Brilliant. That's absolutely brilliant, Amanda. I can see so many questions. It's really encouraging to see. And you know, like we've said before, I really hope that you're going to take away some really key points and have the most amazing CVs. And I can't wait to see them. We're going to follow on now to the last of our Super 6, and you know, we've really enjoyed sharing these with you. So this is the final stage. So once again, what we've got here is the example of Joe Bloggs' CV. We all love Joe Bloggs there, don't we? Going through then on the one section, you can see on this particular example that we have added in the photo. Now this is optional, but I will say that, you know, we deal with thousands of CVs all the time, and those CVs that do have a photo on them, personally for me, they very, very much stand out, and I remember them above and beyond. So if you've got a photo, if you can apply a photo to your CV and you feel confident and competent to do so, go for it, do it. Just make sure it follows some certain criteria guidelines. It's professional, it's smiley, you know, follow some of the passport rules, I suppose. No sunglasses, you know, make sure that you're wearing appropriate attire. It needs to be the right one, otherwise it's better not to have one. So yeah, I definitely go for a photograph. You've got your contact info, you know, with Super 6 in there, aren't we? Contact info, personal statement, work experience. We've got education, hobbies and interests. This last part here is your references. So references, again, are something that employers are going to want to gain. You know, a lot of the time they're very simple formatted. They're just confirmation of where you've worked or when you've worked. For some of you here, a reference on here might be your tutor. It might be your principal of your school or your college. It might be that it's a personal reference from somebody from where you've had a hobby or an interest, whether that's somebody from the cadets, you know, a swimming teacher, whatever it might be. Or it might be that you've done some paid work or work experience and it's from them. Your references can really be who you choose them to be, but we'd also say, you know, try and get 2 good references and put the information. As long as they're willing to share their info and they've given you permission to, you put the name, you put an email and a contact number, and where they're from and what like relevance it is to you. So, you know, manager, whatever it might have been, and that's what your 2 references are. Don't want you to panic about this though. So if at this point you don't really have a reference, you're not sure who to go to for that, it's something that we can help advise with. And what you can put on there is references are available upon request, and it's perfectly acceptable to do so. So if you wanted to do that, do it. Although, like I'd say, for a time benefit and point of view, to actually have the references on there, an employer would love it. One of the other things, which is key, is social media. Now, I can guarantee you that employers, and I did this myself, when I've had people and I'm employing for a role, you do look at the social media of that person. So they're going to look and they're going to Google and they're going to check it out. So if you are in a position to do so, I would say put your links on it, put your social media links on there. Why be afraid to do so? They're going to find them anyway. They're going to search them. It's quite common practice these days for employers to do that. So if you're confident to put them on there, don't be shy, and it shows that you are quite willing, you know, you're quite proud of what you've put on social media, you're not ashamed to do so. The other thing is, if you don't want them to see, and everybody's entitled to a private life, you know, I don't want you to take this the wrong way in any way, shape or form, but if you don't want it on there, what you need to do is go back to your social media and you need to look at your privacy settings, because if it's something you don't want an employer to see, if there's certain wording or banter between friends and things on that you think this isn't going to be portrayed in a very professional way, then just make sure it's private settings for friends only, and that way they're not going to see it. If it's relevant though, for instance, we touched on the art thing earlier, it might be you're on Instagram, you might post pictures, you might post artwork, let the world see it, let them pick those things up on there. So in the right way, pop your social media on there if you think it's applicable to do so, but I certainly would recommend it because it's going to, again, save time. Employers are going to look. Now, looking at formatting, now we do have templates and we'd be quite happy to send templates out to people should they need one. We can send out these examples and we can send out the Super 6, and that's what we'll do to anybody who sent emails in today. There are some templates out there that we would really discourage you from using. There's an Indeed template and there's one on Reed as well. They're commonly used. We can tell when we get them. We go, oh, that's on an Indeed template. It's not very user friendly. And we actually back that back to people and say, reformat this on a different template because it doesn't look good. And so many people use them that they all become very the same. So there's nothing making it any different or making it stand out or unique to you. So really think about the template that you're using to start off with, or really get creative on producing your own and putting it together yourself. Always get someone to spell check and always get someone to proofread. Very, very important things on there. Don't just guarantee that it's going to spell check for you because it doesn't always pick everything up on there that you've made a mistake on. Font size and headings, we can recommend on these. Again, it will depend on how big a document it is. And these three last areas do fall into the same kind of area. So font size, font type, and the amount of pages used on a CV. This is where you can edit and make it slightly different. Now, we recommend 2 pages is the maximum amount that a CV should be in size. Prints out front and back. We don't want it to go any more than that. You can see this particular example here is all fitted quite easily on just one sheet of paper, and that's absolutely fine. Make sure that it's all relevant information. And if, for instance, you do need to then make the font size slightly smaller, make the margins a little bit narrower, anything like that, you can do it so that it fits and edits well, and that's what you want to do. You want to maybe even look at a print preview of it to see how it's going to print out, how it's going to look. Font type, again, keep it simple. Don't go for anything too busy on there. It doesn't need to be too eye-catching. It can be too much. So always follow those kind of basics, basic font size. And the main thing is, whichever one you use, keep it going all the way through the theme of the CV. Don't change through different fonts. Don't change through different sizes. Keep it the same and keep it consistent. So this CV, it's for the rest of your life. This is the one you're putting into place. Whether you're going to go back with some of these hints and tips now and adjust one you've already got, whether you're doing this for the first time, just remember this is, get it right from the start. Let us help you get it right. And then all you'll ever need to do is update it and amend it. It's going to help you with new jobs, experiences and qualifications. And I really hope you're going to take on board these Super 6 and really show these skills in your CV going forward. So we're going to go through then. I'm just going to touch on to pass you to very quickly Amanda, because I can see loads of questions have come in and there might be just a couple of relevant ones to everybody she might want to pass up on, and then we'll just take you on towards the end of the webinar. But thank you ever so much. Amanda?
Hi. Yeah, so a few different questions. I think we've covered a lot of what's coming through, but just a couple of odd ones. We've had Yasmin say she's something about she's been told before to put the times that she's been doing her exams. I would assume you just mean like the different years or different times you've actually sat exams. So every time you've done an exam and you've achieved, you just need to list it with your highest grade and the year you did it. So some people, it may be because you did a GCSE a year early, but just put the year you achieved it and make sure they're listed clearly. We have Julian talking about a sport, judo. We've actually asked, somebody else has mentioned about swimming and being competitive and entering competitions. Sports can be very disciplined. You learn lots of skills, you build self-confidence. I mean, we've talked about this already, but it's, somebody who regularly attends, shows commitment, works in a team. So again, really relevant for a CV. I want to thank you all being the Q&A person here today, along with my colleagues who've been, like Susie mentioned, actively trying to answer your questions, but really appreciate those today. You've challenged me a little bit, but I hope I've helped you, and please continue as we continue to just finish up on this webinar if you have any further questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Amanda. That's brilliant. So hopefully that gives you a lot of information about tweaking your CV or starting from afresh, whatever your situation is. Ultimately, the ethos of Telford College and the apprenticeship team is we realise people are in different situations. If this can be valuable to you and you can mould it to how you can benefit from it, then absolutely brilliant. So thinking a little bit more and tailoring it to an apprenticeship at the moment, if you think an apprenticeship is the next stage for you and you want to start applying, if you email us for an application pack at apprentices@telfordcollege.ac.uk, and we also generally will request a CV back with that application form. So brilliant, while it's fresh in your head, get that CV tweaked or made up, and obviously pop it through to us. We can offer further advice, so again, any questions or queries, feel free to contact us on, again, apprentices@telfordcollege.ac.uk. What we'll do from there is look to get a video interview with you set up to try and get to know you a little bit more on a personal level, and to really understand those ambitions and what you really want to start to look to achieve and build a career in. And hopefully off the back of that, that's when you'll join our talent pool, and we're ready with confidence that we can get your CV out to employers and really start getting you through to the next phases of being successful for an apprenticeship. Feel free to come to us on Talk to Us Tuesdays. So if we just bring up that next slide, Talk to Us Tuesday is absolutely fantastic opportunity. If you've got any questions, any queries, if parents, guardians have, if there's anything you're unsure about with apprenticeships, any of the details behind that, and also obviously the CV and how to start applying, come and talk to us. Okay, and the best email contact for that is Laura. So it's laura.rogers@telfordcollege.ac.uk. So feel free to book in at any time on that for that Tuesday sessions, happen weekly. So it's a big thank you from us at Telford College, myself, Susie and Amanda, with also our colleagues that you don't see behind the scenes. We've got our next webinar coming up in 2 weeks' time, on Wednesday the 20th of May at 1:30, and that's where we'll start to look at interview techniques. So again, this is relevant to people looking for apprenticeships, but also those part-time jobs and other job roles that people may be applying for. So don't think it's just tailored for one scenario. We'll look at how to prepare for an interview, we'll look at how to answer questions, things like positive body language, and how to present yourself to give you that successful interview with employers. So lastly, just to say a big thank you for joining us again, and we shall hopefully speak to you or see you soon. Thank you.